Thursday afternoon, a matinee edition of KnicksFanTV Live, presented by BetUS Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of KnicksFanTV. On today's show, in the aftermath of the Anunoby trade, what's next for the New York Knicks? Still have some holes to fill. We're going to talk about that and react to a couple of interesting reactions to the Anunoby trade. So lock in, and today's special guest, you can catch him on NBA Radio on SiriusXM, the host of NBA Weekends with Sam Mitchell. You can also catch him on NBA TV. He is Brian Gelsiler, and he joins me today on the ones and twos. Let's get into it. Hit the like button, hit the share button, and subscribe to the channel. Matinee edition of KnicksFanTV. Brian, welcome to the show, man. Happy to have you on.
Thank you, Casey. Appreciate you having me on, buddy. Looking forward to it. Excited.
Absolutely, man. I figure, you know, any time you get some air from Sam Mitchell to come and do your thing, it's always a good day, right? So I give you a little bit of a reprieve during the week.
Listen, I appreciate that. And I will tell you, there's very few things I love more than Sam interrupting me. Because most of the time that he is, it's something really smart coming out of his mouth. So I've learned to give that man all the space that he needs.
Yeah.
And once in a while, if you notice, I'm jumping in on him too, here and there, just to make sure that we're keeping him honest, you know?
You know what, man? Coming up in the game as I have over these years and getting the opportunity to work with you guys at SiriusXM, you know, when I work with different people, coming down with a cadence sometimes can be difficult. You know, some of my own partners, and I work with Howard Beck, work with, you know, Isolo, those guys, but with Sam, it's completely different ball game, man. Completely different ball game.
It is.
All expectations out the window. You just got to let Sam be Sam, man. Just let Sam cook.
That's it. And the thing with Sam is that sometimes the best stuff you'll get from Sam is when he goes off on tangents. So what I've learned, we've been together 4 years. And what I've learned with him is when to let him go and when to pull him back off the tangents.
Yeah.
Because some of the best stories I hear, and one of the things I'll always say this, whenever he says, well, Wayne Embry taught me, it's time to be quiet and let Sam go. Because normally that's some kind of piece of wisdom that we even haven't heard enough or haven't heard yet that's going to teach us something about the league or about how to manage people or about anything or about race. And whatever it is, when he says, well, Wayne Embry taught me, it's time to be quiet and let Sam go.
No question about it, man. And it's been interesting
Recording in progress.
Learning from a seasoned veteran like Sam. But on these Knicks, Anunoby blockbuster trade, man, happened on Saturday. You know, I was certainly stunned by it, but, you know, what was your reaction to it, and how do you grade this thing?
Well, listen, I certainly think that it was a very good trade for both sides. When you consider the fact that last year the Raptors turned down 3 ones for Anunoby at the trade deadline,
right,
and then the Knicks were able to get him without sacrificing a first-round pick. Now, again, part of why the Knicks are able to get him is because the Knicks signed Barrett and Quickly both to extensions. I'm sorry, Barrett to an extension.
Yeah.
Quickly not yet, but Quickly's going to sign an extension with Toronto. Toronto didn't make this deal for Emmanuel Quickly to let him hit restricted free agency. That's going to happen. But the Knicks were smart in signing Barrett to that deal at the time that they did. And I know Zach Lowe had a quote this week saying there were some people that considered Barrett a toxic contract. I had heard very little of that out there. More I had heard is that Barrett's contract was somewhat reasonable for not only the player that he is, but the player that he could be. But I think it's very important for Knicks fans who were not happy that Barrett was moved. And I'm a big RJ Barrett fan, Casey.
Yeah.
I feel like he's got heights to hit that he hasn't hit yet. I think he can be a better defender than what he's been, and I've seen him be a better defender than what he's been. And I still hold to the fact there's a good catch and shoot shooter sitting in there somewhere.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to reach that here. And I think it's really important to understand that with the ball dominance of Brunson and the ball dominance of Randall, RJ wasn't going to get his chance to cook in that way. He's not just a catch and shoot guy. And I think what we saw this year was the fact that he wasn't getting the looks on offense and getting the usage on offense that he was comfortable with, and it started to affect his defense, and it started to affect his rebounding. OG Annoy Trade doesn't need the ball, okay? He's a a really good three-point shooter, what, 38, 39% three-point shooter.
Yeah.
Okay, attacks closeouts really well. Doesn't have to be a guy that creates. And on RJ Barrett's best defensive day, he's not better than OG Annoy on his worst defensive day. He is a superb perimeter defensive player, the kind of defensive player that Tom Thibodeau needs on this team, the kind that they were missing. So they got a little bit of depth here. I get it. Listen, the thing with Quickley that I think a lot of Knick fans miss, and I know that Knick fans loved Emmanuel Quickley here. I get it. The fact is, his ball dominance and his over dribbling in the half court didn't fit all that well with Julius Randle and with Jalen Brunson. And at times late in games, there wasn't enough ball movement. So I think for the Knicks here, it's kind of replacing what that was as quickly as you, no pun intended, as quickly as you possibly can, all right, to know that you're down a bench guy right now, you're down a bench guard, but to get a fit like Anunoby with your starters, it was worth it to me.
When I first heard the trade rumors, and like you said, last year it was like 3 first-round picks, I'm like, I'm out. There's no way that if I'm the Knicks, I'm going to use a quarter of quality draft capital to put into a guy who doesn't have much shot creation ability. Yes, we know he's lockdown defender, and we needed a wing desperately. I just thought the price to pay in 3 first-round picks, if that's what it really was, plus having to sign him to a deal, he's going to probably get northwards of $30 million. I thought that was kind of steep. And so I was kind of leery of the Knicks making that deal last year. But as this year unfolded and the prospects of not landing a big fish, on top of the fact that it's still a tricky fit with RJ and Julius, and what that ceiling would look like with this team had they just gone through with it and just, wished for internal development, I didn't see it. I thought they were capped. I thought those two guys, it was definitely tricky in the starting 5. You didn't have the defensive wing that you needed. And so I did expect the shakeup to happen, just not at the deadline, not before the deadline, and especially between the Knicks and Raptors in the backdrop of everything that's transpired between the two teams. But as you said, the Knicks really needed that wing defender. It was a critical need. He comes out against the Timberwolves and shows you exactly why they got him and why they needed him, and how much the game changed when he was sitting on the bench versus when he came back into the game. And so, yeah, they take a little bit of a hit, but to address that need and address the fit around your 2 stars, it's critical. Like, if you're going to have Jalen Brunson here, he's 27 years old. You got him on the best contract in the league. Eventually, he's going to be close to 50. He's going to double that soon. You got to maximize on his potential. So you need to cover up his defensive weaknesses, and you need to have efficient three-point shooters out there. And I like the dynamic that OG and DiVincenzo can bring from the corners. You have 2 of the best corner three-point shooters right now in the league. Put him out there with Brunson. Randle playmaking way better. I like the potential. Still needs a little bit more.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think part of what made this trade possible is how well DiVincenzo was worked out. He's played. It's been a good signing. I thought they may have gone a little rich for him. They doubled the salary on what he made last year in Golden State, but it's worked out well. He's played really well for them. So I totally agree with you. And I think that you look at where the weaknesses were, they filled in some weakness. Did they gut a little bit of depth? They did gut a little bit of depth. But I think there's an important aspect out here to look at big picture wise. So listen, 2 summers ago, the price tag for superstar players was through the roof. If you look at what Utah brought in for Mitchell and Gobert, it's absolutely insane. Then we look at the Damian Lillard price tag. Now, granted, Lillard may not have had the leverage of those guys. He wasn't as deep. But those guys were early in contracts too. For whatever reason, the market has now come down a little bit. Here's my point. The Knicks right now are still sitting on Quentin Grimes. They're still sitting on Evan Fournier's expiring contract, which would have you think that they have to do something between now and the deadline, because that's where the value lies to bring that extra salary in. So that's important. All right. They're also sitting on Mitchell Robinson's contract. Yeah. Keep that in mind. All right. Second year of a 4-year, $60 million deal. And before he got hurt, the guy that he proved to be, 15 mil, is an absolute bargain for that player. Okay. So they're sitting on that. And they didn't trade a first-round pick. They traded a pseudo first-round pick in Detroit's second, which is likely to be one of the first, probably the first pick in the second round this year. But big deal. And it's a valuable pick, don't get me wrong, because you don't have to guarantee a contract with it. All right. But by the same token, they still have all of their firsts. That's all of theirs, plus the additional 4 that they have. My point being is if they want to go make a pick-laden deal, they have enough assets to be able to do it. And part of the thinking here was that the market has reduced a little bit for that kind of player. We don't have to hold all of our chips for that one big guy. The only question that we ask right now, Casey, is that if the Fournier contract, which is the clock's ticking on, so you're going to have to use it this year, who is that guy that's going to be available? Because right now, with the way the league's shaking out, it's kind of hard to tell who that dude's going to be.
No question about it. And on the heels of what you just said, I want to play this Woj soundbite just in terms of what the Knicks could be thinking. You know, what Woj and Leon Rose are friends. He's kind of like that CAA mouthpiece. Let's hear what Woj has to say on the topic and react to it. Here's Woj from yesterday's NBA Today. Here he is.
I think both at the trade deadline and then after the season. I think if you're the Knicks at the trade deadline, is there going to be a team or teams that are trying to get ahead of the second apron phasing in after the season and moving off a big salary, a player that they might value, but they don't want to be in that second apron and have to face all the roster building limitations that come with it? That's certainly one aspect. And certainly, as you said, Malika, is there a role player, somebody who replaces an Emmanuel Quickley, who can score the ball, as Zach said, who can handle? You know, those are different kinds of trades. But then after the season, this is a New York team that has they have all of their own first-round picks over the next 5 years. And then we got some valuable protected picks from Milwaukee, from Dallas, that are in the next couple of seasons. Those have value in trades, and you know the formula for trying to get a big star in a trade. You get to the end of the season, a team underachieves, there's a shakeup, somebody asks out, or a team's going to make a trade, and you need that player to tell his team, I want to go to New York, or New York's on my list of 2 or 3, and preferably that's a player near the end of his contract because he's got more leverage as opposed to.
All right, so that was Woj, Brian, and you asked me the piece. You know, a lot of fans are thinking it's Murray because of the fit. A lot of the rumors are hot after DeJounte Murray. I still think it's Spider Mitchell, man. I still think it's Spider because, as you said, the market has changed. And if you go to this Woj comment, leverage. They now put themselves back in the Spider hunt, but it's different this time because at the end of this year, they will have the leverage in that he's got 1 year left, player option after that. He can kind of now dictate where he wants to go. He didn't have that in Utah, which is why I think he ended up in Cleveland at the end of the day. They've now got the Spider situation in their sights where they have the leverage, and I believe that's why they think they have enough to go get that guy because it won't cost them as much as it would when they were going after him 2 years ago.
Yes. Now, you mentioned Murray. I want to go there first.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. I'm in the minority here on people you talk to about Murray and the Knicks. I think he's a bad fit. And I'll say it for this reason. All right. He hasn't fit well next to Trae Young. And if we're going to be fair about this, and we got to be fair about it, all right, I would say Brunson may dominate the ball a little more than Trae Young does. And it just didn't fit for Murray there for whatever reason. Murray seemed a little shot hungry and a little ball hungry there. And the other thing that happened to Murray is not having the ball in his hands, a la Barrett, reduced how effective he was defensively. Now, you want to make the case to me he's not going to have to guard as tough a perimeter player because OG Anunoby's here. Maybe that's right. But I will tell you this. I know this for a fact. Atlanta's not going to take a little bit for him.
Right.
They traded 3 first-round picks for this guy on a pick swap. They're going to want a lot for DeJounte Murray. I'm not gambling on that player. So let's talk about Donovan Mitchell for a minute. Now, listen, the Knicks are going to be able to get Donovan Mitchell for a lot less now than they would have if they had traded for him a year and a half ago. So that's a fact.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be out there. The only question for Cleveland is, do we think we can get Garland and Mobley back in time to make a playoff run? So the Mitchell, hanging your hat on the Mitchell thing, to me, depends upon Cleveland wanting to make him available. Because the reality is this, if I'm Cleveland, if I think I'm getting Garland and Mitchell back in time to make a playoff run, I don't think I'm trading them at the deadline.
No.
I may wait till draft night because if I think I can get them back, I want to run with this team. I want to see what happens. So the Knicks, if that's where they're going to hang their hat, they may have to play a game of chicken here because the last time you can trade Fournier is draft night.
Draft night.
Otherwise, that expiring deal does not have a lot of value for you at all. That's the last time you can do it. So this may be a situation where the Knicks may have to say, okay, we're going to look to bring someone in to slot underneath Randall and Brunson. It may not be a top-end guy to be able to put there. Now, I had felt that this guy was going to be a good fit in the Knicks next to Randall when he signed with Chicago, and that's DeMar DeRozan. And I think that's an interesting situation. The Bulls crave first-round picks. They would take the expiring deal. And if you throw him one of your own and one of another, DeRozan's contract's up at the end of the year, but he's an older player. You're not going to – because you can't look at a Zach LaVine. Listen, I think you'd probably get Bradley Beal from Phoenix right now, quite frankly. Okay, because they want to lengthen their roster out a little bit. But Woj said something really important there. The second apron. And although the Knicks will spend, they don't want the roster moving handcuffs that go along with being a second apron team. So who are you going to get here that there's some reasonableness to the contract? Because you made a very good point before. In 2 years, Brunson's going to double his salary.
Yeah.
And granted, at that point, there's going to be more money in the system. The new TV deal is going to come around, streaming stuff, all of that. Okay. But you still don't know how far it's going to put you into the second apron. So my point being, Mitchell not being available may not be the worst thing that you see happen, because part of why I think DeRozan would fit here, even with Brunson and Randall, and DeRozan likes the ball in his hands a lot also, is because you got rid of quickly. Because you can take any one of those three guys and anchor a second unit around them and have them get their ball dominance in there. Plus, DeRozan's a guy that is not afraid of taking big shots at the end of the game, and he is also an extremely unselfish player. So I think that, to me, is also something that matters. Problem with him is he doesn't guard. That's where you worry here. Yeah. The other guy that I keep an eye on, and he's a strange fit with having Julius Randle on the roster, but he can play a couple of different positions. He can play both forward positions, and he actually guards pretty well, and he's signed to a reasonable long-term deal. It's Kyle Kuzma in Washington. That's an interesting guy to keep an eye on. Listen, the teams you want to watch right now, Detroit, Washington, Chicago, and San Antonio are the teams that are probably going to be looking to trade guys. So Bogdanovich in Detroit's a nice choice. You could probably get him for 2 firsts.
Yeah.
And that shooting would be fantastic. Kuzma, I think you put Kuzma there, you play him at 3, Anunoby at 4. Kuzma can guard, and he gets out and runs. He can score a little bit, doesn't have to have the ball in his hands all the time. He's not a bad guy for them. And again, the deals are reasonable. And the important thing with bringing guys in on reasonable deals is because if that star comes available and you're still sitting on most of your picks, you can then wheel that guy out. So the fact that guys are able to be moved and that are somewhat liquid in a trade market matters a lot here. And Murray and his extension worry me about that. So those are just a couple of other guys that are out there. One other guy that I think would be interesting, and I think the Knicks could get him for no more than 1 first-round pick or potentially 2 that aren't their own. And I think he would be a guy that would replace quickly, seamlessly, is Jordan Clarkson in Utah. Yeah, and he's available. They're going to look to trade. I know there's been rumors about Markkanen, and the Knicks have want nothing to do with Markkanen, nor should they. But Jordan Clarkson, that's one of those irrational confidence guys, heat check dude, where he can win games for you. And if he's doesn't have it and he's missing a lot of shots, the Knicks can afford to put him on the bench and not take him off. Yeah. So that's the other thing with him. So I think the Knicks are in a great position right now. But I also think, as much as we want to talk about Spider Mitchell, the star that they crave may not be available. And this may be about improve the team as much as you can right now, but make sure that we stay liquid and stay mobile, that we can make a move for a star when that comes available, but still try to make a run this year.
Yeah, and that's why I thought the Anunoby trade was important for them, because you had to address that need. And yes, you're hurting. They're definitely hurting in spots. How do they make up for that offense that Barrett and quickly leave out of there? Who's going to be that spark off the bench? So they still have some moves to make, and that's why I can't, on the surface, the Anunoby trade, as far as fit with the Knicks, is great. How it works out in the long term, we have to see what they do next. And with the Spider thing, I don't think that's a deadline move. I think it's a draft day move, because I have to think, with the amount that Cleveland gave up for him, you have to think that Altman and that regime will look to see and make sure that their big four can come together, get healthy before the playoffs start, and make a run. You now have 10 teams in contention for the playoffs now with the addition of the play-in. What Miami and the Lakers had showed you is, hey, you get hot, you get on a run, You tighten up defensively, things could go your way. Things might bounce your way. So I think Cleveland, they have way too much invested in that team to just trade him right now, especially for the price that they paid for him. But they're going to lose more and more leverage as time passes.
Right. And one other point there, Casey, I don't mean to interrupt
Yeah.
you, but it's very important to note. Woj mentioned the second apron and teams not wanting to go into it. Mobley's going to be extension eligible this summer, early extension eligible, and they're going to pay Mobley a big number.
True.
So the point is that they're on the clock with Mitchell in more than one way, because Mitchell's going to ask him for a number that shoves him into the second apron. And and they're going to want to have to see through this season if they've seen enough out of Mitchell with this group that they want to be there. And I would tend to lean towards, and Woj didn't mention Cleveland, but I think that's a team he was getting at and saying it. I lean towards Woj being correct in that Cleveland's not going to want to be in that second apron.
Good thought there. You know, with Murray and DeRozan, individually they are appealing, but when you look at the hole that the Knicks have at the backup point position, I think their fit becomes more digestible because those are two guys that you can have running that second unit. And now you have some firepower here, maybe even on a rental, depending on what you have to pay for it. So that's why I waver back and forth, especially with Murray, because as you said, the fit with Trae Young isn't there. Now you bring him in here with Julius and Jalen Brunson, so now the usage is even double, right? Where does he fit in with those guys? But if I bring him in with that second unit, with Grimes, with Hart, he can run and gun on his own. You know, he can be that guy. He can be the all-star DeJounte Murray that he was with the Spurs, right? He's that guy. Hey, things will look a little bit different for the Knicks in the playoffs.
No doubt about it. The other thing that's interesting about a Bulls deal and getting involved with DeRozan is with the amount of picks that Knicks have, not that you want to throw picks around willy-nilly here, but you could potentially, with Alex Caruso's contract, which is $9 million a year, and he's got 2 more years left on it after this year, if you want to put enough of your own picks or throw a couple swaps in, you could potentially pull DeRozan and Caruso in. And you talk about having a second unit that can operate. And we talk about having enough defense.
Yeah.
Caruso's a good defensive player.
Oh, yeah.
So
always love Caruso.
You get those two guys in, and DeRozan would obviously start, but Caruso all of a sudden fortifies your bench with, Hart, DiVincenzo, and Caruso coming off your bench, and Precious Achiuwa. All of a sudden you look a little bit different there in terms of athleticism, speed, ability to guard. I will say this: Tom Thibodeau has never coached Alex Caruso. Alex Caruso is Tom Thibodeau's kind of player.
No question.
That he'll hit threes, he'll grind, he'll bug people. This is the kind of guy that Tom will hang his hat on. So that's another interesting development in dealing with Chicago. And Chicago, keep in mind, I mean, it's been an embarrassment there based upon who Orlando got in that Vooch deal, what they gave up, the amount of picks that they gave up there, and the amount of picks that they gave up with San Antonio and DeRozan. They need picks back. And the one thing the Knicks have here, that some teams have turned their nose up on the quality of the picks, but for Chicago, some of this is about perception. So that's something interesting to keep an eye on there also. If the Knicks do want to make an all-in type of deal with a bunch of picks to bring in DeRozan and Caruso, they could do a lot worse.
Yeah, true indeed. And, with the Bulls, again, they're in 10th in the East. And so I wonder how motivated are they to split that up? They're playing competitive right now. You're getting some good play from Kobe White. Andre Drummond is playing out of his mind. They're trying to kind of just tread water maybe until Zach LaVine comes back. So I wonder how motivated they would be to be sellers by the deadline.
Without Zach LaVine.
Yeah.
And if somebody would take Zach LaVine right now at this moment, they'd trade him. No one wants him because of the second apron.
Right.
He's making a huge amount of money. He's got injury issues, and it's not lost on the executives around the league that this team has played much better without Zach LaVine on the floor. He's just a guy that has earned a reputation here over time of not being a team player. And that's a big problem. Bad shot selection, like just doing his own thing, no defense. So, but listen, you make a good point about the Bulls because what they've done there, Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Eversley have kind of fooled themselves into thinking this team was better than it is.
Right.
And they really have. It has not been a good team. So to me, listen, Kobe White has shown you something here in LaVine's absence that I don't ever want LaVine playing in front of him again if I'm them. Yeah. White has developed. The team loves him. He's got the ball in his hands. If I'm them, it's Kobe White, it's Patrick Williams, it's Dosunmu I'd keep around. I'd be willing to trade anything else. Andre Drummond is giving the Bulls a massive gift right now.
Yeah.
He's playing awesome basketball, and he's giving them an opportunity to pull in an asset or two for him come the deadline. And he was kind of a guy that was left for dead. And there's teams that do need Andre Drummond. The Clippers need Andre Drummond playing this way in the worst way in terms of their title hopes. I got to tell you, with Mitch Robinson now, Andre Drummond helps.
I take him now.
He really does. One other thing regarding Mitchell Robinson that's interesting, and I want to get your take on this, okay? Because somebody proposed this to me, and I kind of threw it out to someone around the league that said, I've heard crazier ideas. We've heard DeJounte Murray's name out there. What of, if the Knicks truly think that Murray can be that piece, what of throwing a Capella-Mitchell Robinson swap into that deal to get Capella? Now, Capella's not the player he used to be.
Right.
And I love Mitchell Robinson. And I'm not sure that I'm on board with it. I also don't think it's insane if you truly think you can win this year. I just don't know that they can win this year. I don't know that that's the move that makes them win this year, but I'm curious to get your take on that.
I just don't see Capella as being the same guy. I think but in the Mitchell Robinson conversation, look, that's my guy. I've loved him since he's been here. The player development, he's been incredible for this team. They got to be concerned about his durability now. Because now with Mitchell Robinson, we started the year off saying this is a guy who could get all NBA defense nods if he stays healthy. And where are we right now? 21 games in, he's out for the year. I think they got to start looking in the draft, maybe some more veteran upgrades to maybe see, because if he can't make it, they're going to have to look towards the future. So, it's important. But, you see Anunoby out there against the Timberwolves, you're like, man, what is that potential when Mitchell Robinson comes back with these two guys, their length, their athleticism, how they can defend on the perimeter? What does that do for the Knicks defense? Takes it up another notch. But health is so important. You just don't know if you can count on them.
Yep, and listen, I will tell you this: the best offensive rebounder in the league. Think about what he did against Cleveland in the playoffs last year. That's Allen and Mobley. They couldn't keep him from doing everything that he wanted to do. Yeah, and the dude's up to 280 pounds, and he's not fat; it's muscle. He's a monster. And so I love the player, but you're right. If you can't stay on the floor, what does it matter? And right now, he's got a lot of value because of what he's done when he has been on the floor. And I come back to the contract, $15 million a year. My point being, if he's a trade asset for a team that's in the tank already this year, and the Knicks truly think this is the year, you got to look at it.
Interesting indeed. Once again, we're talking to Brian Gale-Seiler, host of NBA Radio on SiriusXM. Salute to everybody in the chat. Once again, hit that thumbs up button for you boys. CP and Brian on the ones and twos. Nelly Dog in the chat says, hey, Gels, West Orange in the house. All right, so Nelly Dog shouting you out. We got a lot of franchise channel members in here. If you guys are at work on the lunchtime grind, throw a hashtag grind in the chat. These lunchtime shows usually do well, Gals. People take a break. Good. They don't want to hear their boss yapping in their ear. They take a lunch break, step outside, catch some fresh air, and tap in with KnicksFanTV. We have some callers on the Discord. Ace, if you're there on the Discord, go ahead and unmute your mic. Let's see if Ace can hear us. We don't have Ace. Do we have Books on the Discord?
Check 1, 2. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Let's go, Ben. How you doing?
Hey, what's up? Great to talk to you again, CP. You guys have been killing it.
Thanks, bro.
Been watching all of this coverage. I'm going to start off by doing something that might give me some tomatoes real quick. I'm going to give this organization a lot of credit. I think they have one of those cop show style boards where they know everybody who they want to get, and they've known it for a long time. We look at the CAA mafia thing as a negative in a lot of ways because of the stuff that we can't do. But they've known about Brunson for a long time. We've been hearing about Anunoby for forever. And so going forward, I think it's almost a zero-sum game. It doesn't matter who they get in the short term. They just can't blow Fournier's contract's value. That's the thing they can't screw up. Fournier's contract's value has to be a part of what we use to get another player. And if we get a guy like Murray, it's not about Murray. It's just about having an asset that replaces that movable value. Because right now, if we can't find a bite on Fournier's contract, there's a time limit on when that goes out. But I truly think this team knows who they want to get already.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for the call, Book. And Brian, in that vein, I think it'd be a good segue because the Karl Anthony Towns stuff is lingering. They played Minnesota on Monday. The CAA connection, the whole conspiracy, the tinfoil hat theory is even larger now that they bring Anunoby in here because those rumors were rumbling when he switched over agencies. But now there's this thought out there that Number one, that they're still going to be hot after Karl-Anthony Towns. Shams has reported they will always be interested. But then you have some people saying they may push Julius Randle out the door because he's not CAA and to get Karl-Anthony Towns. Your thoughts on that, man?
Well, I do think, listen, if they are going to get Karl-Anthony Towns, it's going to cost them Randle.
Right.
Because otherwise, why is Minnesota doing the deal?
Right.
Minnesota is if Minnesota trades Karl-Anthony Towns, and it won't be at the deadline. Minnesota's playing too well.
Yeah.
And they're built too well to compete in the playoffs. It would be after the season if they traded Karl-Anthony Towns because this didn't work out in the playoffs, is what they essentially would do. But there's no reason for them to trade him to the Knicks unless they're getting Julius Randle back. Because Julius Randle literally slots in perfectly next to Rudy Gobert in every single way. So I could see that working for Minnesota. For the Knicks, listen, you'd have to go realize some value for Mitchell Robinson out there in the open market if that's what you're going to do, and you're completely remaking your team. Listen, I think that for the Knicks right now, and that caller just made a great point. Yeah, first of all, I agree. I think the front office did a really nice job here with this Anunoby thing, considering what the price tag was last year and what the price tag is right now, and that they left themselves with plenty of arrows in their quiver here to use. So I think they did a nice job there. But they are on the clock with the Fournier contract, and that's going to push some kind of move this year. Yeah. And again, and that's why I keep going to things like DeRozan and Bogdanovich. Bogdanovich is a guy to look at. Detroit be stupid not to trade him at this point.
What is Weaver holding on to? Between him and Burks, they're just, all these reports, like they're steadfast, they're keeping these guys. What's the point?
Well, I think at this point in time, Weaver's banging his head against the wall, trying to be right on something he's been dead wrong about. Right, and so I think that's a big part of the problem. And the other thing you have to realize, and we see this in all of sports, the GM that made the mess isn't always the right GM to clean the mess. Because all of a sudden they look at particular moves and say, well, I got to be right about this or I'm going to get punted. So I'm going to go down with the ship. And I think you have a lot of that in Detroit right now. Now, granted, the paying of Monty Williams, that ridiculous amount of money.
When he didn't want to be there.
When he didn't want to be there was something on an ownership level. And let's face it, Monty, who was a very good NBA coach, is coaching like he doesn't want to be there. Yeah. Being very stubborn, squandering. Jaden Ivey's a wonderful asset. What he's done to his value the first half of this year, I mean, he's starting to play now. And, it's garbage. I mean, and so to me, if Monty doesn't want Ivey and you're stuck with Monty, well, you got to move Ivey. I mean, I know what my strategy would be. I would pretty much Cunningham stays, Duran stays, everybody else is available. Yeah. And that's it. And that's the way you have to do it. But if everyone else is available, Bogdanovich gives the Knicks another 40% three-point shooter. And because you have Anunoby there, and because Bogdanovich, who's not the best defender in the world, but not the worst defender in the world, and you always have Josh Hart to go to, Casey. That's the one thing about getting a DeRozan or a Bogdanovich. Josh Hart allows you that luxury because when you want to go to two tough perimeter defenders at the same time, that's fine. Anunoby and Hart together, and one of those guys sits. That's the way it would be. So I kind of look at that whole situation and say, you know what? If that's a good use of the Fournier contract in the short term to bring Bogdanovich in, I'm okay with it. And that because the thing is for the Knicks, like, listen, they went into this season, we want Embiid, right? We're waiting for Embiid to be available. Embiid ain't going to be available. No. Him and Maxey are tied at the hip, and they're going to bring in another big-time player there. Yeah. And that team's going to contend for titles for the next 3 to 5 years. They wanted Giannis to be available. At least for now, Giannis is not available. Who knows what's going to happen with him in the future, depending upon what the Bucks do. So that's out the door. Mitchell may not be available. So you're going to have to – this team has shown you enough between last year in the playoffs and this year so far. Because keep in mind, even when you look at the record, they've played a lot more road games than they have home games. Yeah. So the better days are ahead. If you can add something to this team that keeps you mobile to make your next big deal, you still have to add it this year. And getting back to the caller's point, the Fournier contract is something when they're on the clock.
Yeah, they are certainly on the clock, man, between now and draft day. Salute to everybody in the chat. Once again, hit that like button, hit the thumbs up button for you boys. We got 1,800 people in here on the lunchtime matinee edition of the Knicks Fan TV, man. We've been cooking. People want to hear about trades, man. They like to hear about trades. That's just the reality of it. We like to break down the game. We like to talk about the game, but people like to talk about trades as well. So that's what we are here for. But on the whole cat thing, I just don't see it. I mean, you have Julius Randle right now balling out of his mind, balling out of control, playing at an all-star level. Again, third year out of 5 now, playing at an all-NBA level. Why would the Knicks want to backtrack, mess all that up to bring in Cat? You got Brunson and Randle cooking right now Focus on that. Swapping out Randall for Cat doesn't get you any closer to your goals. I don't see it. Now, unless
I agree with you.
Unless Karl Anthony Towns just has some Dirk Nowitzki type playoff run, I just don't see it. You're fine right now. Complement Randall with complementary plays, and see where it goes from there.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
It's a lateral move. And they
move.
don't need a lateral move. And more than that, it risks taking a move backwards for this reason. Like, you talk about Randall and Brunson together. Those guys love each other. Those guys are great friends. They enjoy playing together. I mean, Casey, let's face it. One of the reasons this didn't work for R.J. Barrett is because he wasn't a member of the Villanova Mafia. All right, you got I mean, that's my joke. I call it the Villanova Mafia, but Randall is an honorary member.
Yeah.
So it's Randall, it's obviously Brunson, it's Hart, it's DiVincenzo, and it's Arcidiacono at the end of the bench.
Yeah.
Like, but that clique is an off-court clique that has now carried into an on-court clique. And Barrett and Quickly were two of the guys that didn't fit into that clique. And it affected how they played on the floor in different ways. For Quickly, it was about ball dominance and having the ball in his hands as much as possible. And let's face it, we'll call it like it is, ball hogging at times. Now, again, he was a good bad shot maker. Still took a lot of bad shots. And then for Barrett, it was kind of retreating, not necessarily playing with the requisite level of energy and not hitting his stride on the potential that he had because he didn't love being on the floor with those guys.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is you're now going to borrow a piece from this Villanova Mafia that works, that want to be together and are happy. Listen, for better or for worse, the Brunsons are running this organization with Dom and Leon Rose.
Yeah.
It's what it is.
Yeah.
And listen, when you look at what's happened since Jalen Brunson has gotten here, and since Rick has been on the sidelines as an assistant coach, and since Leon has gotten to New York, the results have been pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been an upward trajectory. Now, listen, the next moves are going to be the most vital, but if OG Anunoby being one of the next moves, I'm all in on it. I think it's a great move, and I think we'll see how that plays out over time. Here's the most important piece of this, Casey, before I turn it back to you. Okay, the Knicks, in making this deal, became a better playoff team by making this deal. And that's the important thing. You win in the playoffs with defenders and three-point shooters like OG Annoy.
And the three-point efficiency, like you said. And the thing with OG, number one, is his efficiency from the corners, which is great. But can't sleep on his rim efficiency also, because that's been a problem for the Knicks. I mean, when they had Randall and RJ, you had two inefficient guys from the rim. So from three and from the rim, you're woefully inefficient. Now, thankfully, as you said, Mitchell Robinson comes in here. He's getting you second chance opportunities. Last year, they took care of the ball. So a lot of things broke right for them. But you have to address some of your weaknesses, get more efficient so that if your shots aren't falling, you look at a guy, what OG was doing in that game against the Timberwolves. He's cutting to the basket. He's in the dunker spot. He had 4 dunks in that game. We haven't seen that from the Knicks in ages.
No doubt about it. No, and again, it's about attacking closeouts. Yeah. They close out on him. He's really good at attacking closeouts. But think about it. Here's a guy that drives to the basket well, that doesn't have to have the ball in his hands all the time to do it.
There you go.
And that's such a key factor here in Anunoby being a better fit than Barrett. He doesn't have to have the ball in his hands. Then there's one basketball on that court, Casey. And Brunson loves having it, and Randall loves having it. And the two of them have become pretty good at sharing it with one another, but they're not wonderful at sharing it with others early in the shot clock. Late in the shot clock, they'll find guys. OG Anunoby, because of the way he shoots and the way he attacks closeouts, is a good player late in the shot clock to catch a ball with less than 5 seconds left in the shot clock and make something happen with it.
Knock down a 3 for sure, man. We hit 2,000 people in the chat. Salute to everybody in the chat, man. Hit the like button, hit the share button, and subscribe to the channel. Do we have Ace on the Discord? Ace on the Discord. Go ahead and unmute your mic if you're there.
Yes, sir. CP.
Loud and clear. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Good, man. Rocking on a lunchtime edition. So, good, doing well, man.
But no, yeah, I'll say I became a Knicks fan around as soon as Jalen Brunson left the Mavericks, because I mean, like, that's my original team.
Okay.
I mean, I always thought he was a real underrated player. Mm-hmm. He always kind of played with like that tenacity, that physical tenacity that's really not expected with small guards of his stature, but also a mental tenacity, almost like a Chris Paul type of player. With a good spice of Luka. So yeah, like when he came to the Knicks, I was already invested in the team. You know, it was a work in progress to say the least when he got there.
Yeah.
And he performed. He performed to my expectations because a lot of Knicks fans, not calling y'all out. A lot of Knicks fans was like, "Oh, Jalen Brunson, we're paying him all this money," and he got there and he was performing. They were like, "Oh my God!" And I was like,
Yeah.
So, with the team, really, how I feel like with the trade with OG Annoy, I feel like that was a match made in heaven. Like, there's no better trade the Knicks really could have made at that time to really improve the roster to where a step in the direction they wanted. RJ is good, quickly. Every Knicks fan is going to miss him, but RJ, he just lacked that tenacity. You could see it in his eyes. No offense, love RJ, but you could see he wasn't going to get down and dirty with some of these premier wings in the East that we would need to go through, like the Jimmy Butlers and the Jason Tatums. He had a tendency for his tail to tuck in those type of situations.
I'm
so
not
OG
so
was
sure.
really good.
I'm not so sure. I appreciate the call. We got to get more callers in there. I mean, I'm not so sure it was his tail to tuck. He just doesn't have.
Played pretty good in the playoffs last year.
Right.
He really did. He was really good in the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
I just think the role got tough for him
This is a
because
tough role.
he hit his ceiling at this location because he wasn't going to get the ball more and he's going to need to get the ball more. It'll be interesting to see how he does with Scotty Barnes and with Quickly because Siakam's going to be out of there sooner rather than later. He's not a candidate for the Knicks, but Siakam's going to be out of there sometime. It'll be interesting to see how he does with those two guys because I do think there's going to be more of an opportunity for him to be initiating offense there.
For sure. No question about it. Will from LI. Will, let's go. Rapid fire.
Hey, what's going on? You guys got me?
Loud and clear. Yep.
Awesome. All right. First off, CP, Brian, thank you guys for the show. You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you.
It's definitely going to be rapid fire because I got a meeting at 15, so I definitely got to get out of here soon. But about the trade, ultimately, my biggest issue with the trade is because I thought that it messed up the future move, the Donovan Mitchell move. Now, to my understanding, Cleveland has indicated that they don't expect to trade Donovan this year, which is great. But I always feel like you need young players in any trade packages for a superstar because the Cavaliers don't want to rebuild. They still want to be good. They're going to want good players. So that's why I'm hoping that Grimes moving to the starting lineup. But I digress. The move that I feel like the Knicks could do, me personally, is Tyus Jones of the Washington Wizards. The Wizards ain't doing anything. The Wizards, they're really bad, right? It's a good pick, right? The Wizards ain't doing nothing. I feel like they're a really bad team. They're not really trying to win this year. They didn't get a lot of assets in the Bradley Beal move, so maybe they might be hungry for some assets. Specifically, I'm looking at that Detroit pick that we have, which is top 18 protected. Listen, I'll give up. If you give me Tyus Jones, he's only making $14 million. I don't want to give up Evan Fournier. I still want that contract, but I feel like Tyus Jones is a really good player. He averages 5.5 rebounds. 5.5 assists per game. Premier point guard, backup point guard in the NBA. I feel like that's the move we should do. I'll leave you guys to it, and you guys have a good one.
All right, man. Thanks, Will from LI. Tyus Jones, Brian, $14 million this year. $14 million. Would you move the Fournier contract?
Love the player. Love the player. There's two issues I would have with it. I'm a huge fan of Tyus.
Yeah.
Love the player. And by the way, what you're seeing with terms of Memphis not being as good this year, one of the biggest reasons is because Tyus Jones isn't there when Morant wasn't playing. But I'll say this. Number one, can we play him and Brunson in the backcourt for any kind of extended minutes together? Probably not. I don't know that he's good enough defensively to do that. And I think bringing Tyus Jones, some of his minutes are blocked by Brunson. That's, there's not a ton of minutes for a backup point guard. Part of why Quickly was able to play as many minutes is because he defended bigger wings.
Yeah.
So Quickly was able, which I don't know that Tyus Jones has that in him. The other thing is, if you look at the Knicks salary structure, correct me if I'm wrong, but short of trading Mitchell Robinson or DiVincenzo, I don't know how you get Tyus Jones on this team without trading Evan Fournier's expiring contract.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the other part of it. Again, love Jones. Wouldn't turn my nose up if they brought him in. But I do think salary-wise and even rotation-wise, it's maybe a little bit of a clumsy fit.
Might be tough. Now, according to Fred Katz of The Athletic, they did accrue a $6 million traded player exception in the RJ deal. So not sure how they if they're able to use that.
I don't think they can aggregate it, though.
Okay.
I think
it's exact.
But I don't think they can aggregate it. It's that number or less, and it's only for one player, I believe.
That's right.
Casey.
That's right.
And where that becomes interesting is Drummond. Drummond's a guy that you could slot into that because I believe, and I'm going off the top of my head, but I believe Drummond earns $6 million or less this year. That's a guy that would be interesting there. And again, expiring contract for him. If you were willing to give one of these protected first, and there's your Mitchell Robinson substitute for this year with the way he's playing, which I think that, he would fit very, very well in this next team.
Drummond's at $3.3 million.
That's 3.3. There you go.
So there you go. Point. There you go.
Yep.
I like that. Other guys, people label me Alex Burks, junkie here, but I'm not really going in that direction. I do like Monte Morris, a guy like Monte Morris, though. You bring in another Tibbs guy. I love him. Tough defense, efficient three-point shooter. They gave McBride the extension, and I'm willing to see what he can do. But if, for this team going into the playoffs, they need experience. I think they got to go a little bit more reliable at that backup point guard position. It's too important. Quickly leaves a big void there.
I totally agree. Listen, I'll say this about McBride. I think that the Knicks like him a lot more than teams around the league like him. And I think we'll see if he gets exploited now that we do see him get some minutes. But Monte Morris has been one of my favorites, an all-Gelt special, I call him. And Lou Dort are on my all-Gelts team. I love that player. But I think to the point, comparing Tyus Jones to him, Morris is actually a better fit. Because what Morris is going to do is he'll be better with less minutes, and he'll come in the game and he'll guard really well.
He plays tough. He's a Tibbs guy.
Tough defense. He's a Tibbs again, one of those Tibbs kind of guys. And I do think if you're going to bring somebody in here to replace quickly as a pure backup point guard to Brunson, the most important aspect is how that player defends. The single most important aspect, because we know this. Listen, Jalen Brunson's a franchise offensive player, okay? But the bottom line is this. All right, as a franchise offensive player, can't guard a chair, and I know it's like heresy to say to Knicks fans, but he can't. He's a terrible defensive player. Yeah. You saw what happened last year in the World Cup. Germany exploited him to the point that Steve Kerr had to put him on the bench. Now the Knicks have good infrastructure and they hide him well, but I think if you're going to do something where you're going to take him out of the game, Sam Mitchell taught me this. Okay, you always want your bench players' strengths to be complementary to your starting players. You don't want to have the same types of guys you take in and out. So I think it's when the Knicks look at a backup point guard, that's a very important thing to keep in mind.
No question. What do you think about Brogdon? Another guy fans like.
Listen, I love Brogdon.
Yeah.
It's just, and if you can do that for the Fournier contract, you're all over it. Because the thing about Brogdon, I like Brogdon better than Murray. Let me just get that out there. Because Brogdon will play well next to Brunson. Not only that, Brogdon doesn't turn the ball over. He guards really well. And, listen, the thing about Brunson, he's not easy to fit a two next to because he's not a pure point guard. He is a scoring guard. There's many possessions. No one else touches the ball. Brogdon will find the ability to get him the ball in his good spots, a la the way Luka did. Brunson played very well off of Luka because Luka was a ball-dominant guy, and Brunson all he had to do was guard point guards and worry about scoring. Brogdon would have a similar type of thing. I would like Malcolm Brogdon to me would be a really, really good fit for this team. Either of those guys. Listen, the other thing is that if they decided they wanted to go after Jeremy Grant to play him between Randall and Anunoby at the three and get a guy with some size on the perimeter, I think you make yourself a very tough defensive team too. I forgot when I mentioned earlier the teams that are selling. I forgot to mention Portland. Portland with those two players. Very interesting trade partner for the Knicks. And again, the Knicks could load them up on picks, and the Fournier contract works there too.
Let's take a couple more calls before we wrap. Jay from the Discord. Jay, go ahead and unmute your mic.
Yo, check.
Check. You loud and clear. Let's go.
All right, so let's all remember why New York has failed in the past is because we kept trying to find a savior, right? Whether that's Carmelo, trying to sign LeBron, Porzingis, but now we're actually getting the point, right? It's not really about drafting either. Multiple moves win championships, right? So right now we picked our guy. It's Brunson. Whether he's a 1A, who cares, right? We picked a guy. And we have our identity, which is gritty defensive basketball, and it actually leads to really professional offense. So like transition buckets, corner threes, and punishing like all sorts of matchups and switches, right? Now it's just time to retool around what we want, which is just that. Right? And making sure the guys on the team and the guys playing can all fit that role, right? So it's not about finding a savior anymore. We picked a guy to play around, and now it's about making the team part of that identity as well.
Yeah, and then seeing how far they can go. But I think the tricky thing here is, Brian, is that while there's no one way to build a championship contender, we've seen it along very different paths. Most of the dynasties and most of the teams that stay on top have done it using the homegrown star as kind of like that foundation and then made their pieces, their trades after that. The Knicks are in a situation now where, the RJ pick really didn't bring them what they wanted to go. So now they've got to kind of like trade and acquire their way to contention. It's a little bit different. Like Toronto was able to do that here and there. The Detroit Piston team, if you want to say that, that they were able to do it. But not many teams have done it along that path. It's still a tough spot to be in.
It's not easy. And even you look at a team like right now, the odds-on favorite to win the NBA title is the Boston Celtics. They're built around Brown and Tatum.
Right.
2 high draft picks. Now, granted, Porzingis a trade.
Yeah.
White a trade. Holiday a trade. So there's nothing wrong with trading your way into it. You can certainly trade with those moves. For the Knicks, they have gone a route that we've seen them go many times over the course of this, 20-plus year drought, which is free agency. The thing is that sometimes it's as simple as signing the right free agents, like bringing the right guys in that make you good, guys that complement each other. They've done that with Randall. They've done that with Brunson, and they've got them at reasonable contracts. The best thing I could say about this front office regime, Casey, is there's been levels of discipline regarding spending. That look back to Leon's first off season with Gordon Hayward, right?
Right.
He was willing to pay him $20 million a year for 4 years. He liked them a lot.
Yeah.
You know what? Charlotte paid him $30. Look where they are now. Like, the spending discipline is important. Even having price tags for players in trades.
Yeah.
You know what? How would you feel if they gave up 5 first-round picks for Donovan Mitchell right now and gutted themselves? They wouldn't be good enough.
Yeah.
They'd be where Cleveland is. They wouldn't be good enough. So, to me, I think they're doing the right thing in how they're handling it. I think that caller was correct. There's more than one way to skin a cat here. There's more than one way to build. The hand that the Knicks were dealt here was Randall grew into this all-NBA quality player in a Knicks uniform after signing as a free agent. Brunson has done the same thing. So now what do we do with the picks that we've accumulated, which we haven't squandered? We've had some good young players we've drafted. And I will never refer to RJ Barrett as a bust. Sorry, he wasn't. He's a good player. He still has potential to be a great player. I'm not. It was a good pick. It was the right pick at the time. You want to tell me they should have taken Garland instead? Well, okay.
I think that's,
I think it's not fair.
Yeah.
They took the right player at the right time. Quickly was an excellent pick that they were able to realize some meaningful trade value for. This front office is doing a good job. And I think the fans on a whole should have some faith in these guys that they're kind of going to be on board with what the next right thing is. Listen, there's definitely some dysfunction, I know, behind the scenes with this front office. But ultimately, how decisions are made and your decision maker, Leon Rose, navigates that really well and has made many, many more right calls than bad calls here in his time with the Knicks.
Well said, man. Well said, Brian. And on that note, I think we can wrap a successful show here, man. Patience.
Yes, sir. Dude, can I just say this was my pleasure? I'll do this with you anytime. I had a blast with your callers and the interactions, and you're awesome. So let's do this again, pal. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. Brian, thanks again for joining us. You guys can catch Brian on Twitter at BGeltz, GELTZ NBA. And you can also catch Brian and former head coach of the year, Sam Mitchell, on NBA Radio Sirius XM Channel 86 NBA weekends from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. You can also catch Brian on NBA TV, man. Brian, thanks again. Definitely got to do this again, man. I appreciate all the time.
My pleasure, Casey. Take care, buddy. Happy New Year.
All right, Happy New Year to you. And salute to everybody in the chat once again. Hit that like button, hit the share button, and subscribe to the channel. Share this show on your Twitter feed. Share it on your Facebook. Hey, text your grandma. Let her know the number one show for the fans, by the fans, is cooking on the lunchtime matinee edition, man. If you guys are late to your 1 o'clock meeting, let them know, man. You have better things to do. We got to talk Knicks. This is a very pivotal time in the organization right now. Knicks have the Bulls tonight. Late start, 8:30 from MSG. Tap into the game, and then after that, join us here for KFTV Postgame Live. We'll break it all down. We'll see how OG does. We'll see if the Knicks can get a win. And we'll see how they keep it moving, man. Remember to support our sponsors, BetUS Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of KnicksFanTV. Go to BetUS Sportsbook. You can bet on tonight's game. Check out the lines. Check out the overs and unders. You also have NBA futures bets on BetUS Sportsbook. One thing about BetUS, excellent customer service, secure, reliable service as well, and fast payouts. And for our viewers, they will give you a 125% bonus deposit match. All you have to do is just hit the link in the video description. Also, tap in with our guys at Manscaped, man. Manscaped.com. Promo code KFTV gets you 20% off plus free shipping. Tap in with it, man. What'd you guys think, man? Great guests. I like these lunchtime edition shows. What do you guys think? I think we got to keep it going. You know, we had Mero on one show. We got a number of people, man. So let's keep this going. We're gonna keep doing these matinee edition shows because I like that, man. I like that. I like that, man. People in the chat said you got to correct them on my name. That is my name. That's my government name, man. I don't have a problem with that, man. Everybody knows me, man. CP the franchise, Casey, whatever it is. You know what I mean? It's all in respect. And we had a great show. So once again, 3 o'clock, head over to the NBA report, man. We're talking more trades. We're going to react to the OKC Celtics game. That was a big game last night. Big win for the Thunder. They survived late in the fourth. Survived a late Celtics charge. But anyway, that's what we'll be, man. 3 o'clock, and then we'll see you guys post game at about 11:30 Eastern time, man. Like, share, subscribe. Number one show for the fans by the fans. We got 2,000 people in here on the lunchtime check-in. Let's go. We rocking. I'm out of here. Peace.